Good news, my hair's still not curly. We're going to be tackling part 3 of the Princeton Reverb build. Let's get started. Welcome back, all my YouTube friends. Today is part number 3 in our StewMac Princeton Reverb build. I'm having a blast building this amp. I'm really geeking out on all of the technical details and I'm learning a lot of cool things along the way. I want to say thank you to all of you out there who have commented along the way and are watching all of the videos diligently throughout the build. I hope you're getting something of value out of it. And I know I'm getting a lot of useful information from all of the comments, and I really want to thank you guys for spending the time to point me in the right direction if I'm doing something wrong. As a matter of fact, as a little special thank you, I'm going to be sending out a free Addicted to Gear sticker to anyone out there that provides a comment correcting anything that I've done wrong. There have been a couple already, one in particular that has come in, I think during the first video from a gentleman, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. It's a little challenging. Oliver Baldwin Sigurdsson has pointed out something that most of you did not catch, and he did, so he's got eagle eyes, and I want to send you one of these stickers, Oliver, as a thank you. So please reach out to me, send me your information privately, and I'll send one of these stickers out to you. But just to point out a silly mistake that I made, I had initially installed this panel upside down in the first video. So if you guys go back and take a look at the first video, you'll see I have that the other way around. Something very basic, something very simple, yet I missed it. So I appreciate the comments because you guys are helping me and pointing me in the right direction. One other thing I want to point out, I installed the really cool Fender logo. I ordered this and received it just the other day, decided to put it on. It's starting to look a lot more like a real amplifier now, wouldn't you say? So things are moving along quite quickly, and with every video that I put out in this series, I'm getting a little bit closer to the finish line. So I'm really excited because I want to get this amplifier done so I can actually play it. So let's start jumping right into the details so that we can move this thing forward. Looking over my past steps, I realized a couple of things, and I had to go back to step number 10, where we prepped the grounding strip. And I noticed that I mistakenly soldered the jumper wire on the uppermost holes of each one of the lugs, as shown here, where in actual fact, this jumper should have been across the lower holes. I only realized this after because further instructions in the manual indicate that we need to solder some of the leads from the power supply to these points here. So I'm going to take a moment, take this jumper out and put it in the right place. This is why it's a good idea to check your steps, guys. Just double check everything so that you don't make any silly mistakes. I squared away the little issue that we were having with the grounding strip. I put the jumper wire in the right location, so I freed up the upper lug holes. And we're tackling step 30. And step 30 tells us to take the red-yellow wire off of the transformer here and solder that onto lug 1 of the actual grounding strip, which I've gone ahead and done. So that is completed. The next step, step 31, indicates that we should take the red wires off the transformer here, snip them to length, and we're going to take these, and I actually went ahead and peeled away the shielding, getting these ready to be tinned. But what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to wrap one of the leads around the pin 4 socket 7, and the other one will be pin 6 of socket 7. So let's just tin this up first, and then we're going to try and get in there and do the careful work. So here's a close-up view of pin 4. That's pin 5, and that's pin 6. So I'm going to do one at a time. I put this through, and I won't be able to show you as I'm actually doing the soldering. It's just too tight, so I'm gonna have to do that off camera, but I'll show you the end result. So for safety reasons, all the other unused wires that are coming off of the power supply here for the different voltages for different parts of the world need to be taken care of, need to be terminated so that they're not a danger. There's a lot of power on these that will be coming out of these wires. So what they're asking us to do is just to measure this, cut it so that it's long enough to reach the fuse in case ever you want to go and modify the power going to the amplifier for another part of the world, which I don't think I'm going to end up doing. But they're asking us to then strip off a bit of the top of the wire here. We're going to shrink wrap that, and then we're going to wrap everything carefully and tuck it in place between the transformer and the chassis so that it's out of the way and not dangerous. So let's go ahead and do that. So I followed the instructions and made sure that none of the wires, after I cut them to length, were exposed. I pulled back the actual plastic shielding, pulled it past where I cut the wires so that the wire is sitting actually inside. Then we put the shrink wrap, and I left extra on the tips so that there's no danger of any of the wire coming outside of the shrink wrap. I applied a little bit of a tie wrap here in a nice bright color to indicate danger, wrapped everything nicely, and we're gonna just tuck that in to the chassis here and keep that away from everything else. Step 33 asks us to prepare the yellow leads from the transformer, and to take these and basically cut them to length so that they would reach pin 2 of socket 7, and then wrap the other yellow lead onto pin 8 of the same socket, but do not solder these yellow leads yet. So there's a lot of cutting to length in the following steps, and asking us to put them in the right place and just leave them there. I find it's kind of useless to put them in place and leave them there because they will pop out anyways when you're moving around the other wires. So what I've done is I just wrapped them. I've attached them with a tie wrap so that they stay wrapped, and then I'll go through all of the individual steps to solder them once it's called for. But for the next few steps, there's going to be a lot of wire management to do here. So step 33 is basically cutting these to length. I tinned them already, getting them ready to solder onto the pins. Step number 34 is to take the blue wire and the brown one from the output transformer, not the power transformer. That's the power transformer. The output transformer is underneath here. So to take these and cut them to length, because they will also go to the pins on this tube socket. So those are done. They recommend that we leave the red wire alone for now because that's going to go to the board, so we won't touch that. So I've just tinned these wires as well. And the next step, 35, it's telling us that we need to add 2 jumpers, a 1.5 inch white jumper between the right lug of the speaker jack and the right lug of the extension jack. So I'm going to have to flip this around because the speaker jack and the extension jack are on this side. So to be able to work it, I'm going to flip the chassis so we have a good view of those. And I'm going to cut the wire to length. And then we're going to get that ready so that we can wrap them around. Again, we don't have to solder them yet. So we'll just prepare it. And then we're going to move on to the next step, which is to cut a 3/4 inch white jumper and remove the insulation. Add this short wire between the speaker jack left lug and the center lug. And we're finally going to get to solder something. So let's get those little ends prepared. I've cut the 1.5 inch white jumper wire that we're going to put between the right lug of the speaker jack and the right lug of the extension jack. But since it's asking us just to put it in place and not to solder it yet, I'm just going to put it aside. I'm going to jump to the next step, which is basically having cut a 3/4 inch piece of wire, and we remove the insulation, and this is going to be added between the speaker jack's left lug and the center lug. So what I did is I removed that speaker jack. It's always better for me to solder things outside of the chassis. So I put it on my trusty tool here, and I'm gonna apply it and work on it right here, and then put that back in and do the previous step. It's a little bit of back and forth, a little bit more time involved, but it makes for better solder work. I think it makes a cleaner joint and everything, and it's a lot easier to do. So it's worth the extra effort. So there is the final product with the little jumper soldered between the middle and left lug of the speaker jack. We're going to put that back in and carry on. In step number 36, we're looking at the output transformer as well as the green and black leads coming off of it. We want to cut these shorter so they just reach the speaker extension jack. So don't make them too long. They just need to go a short way. But what we're going to do is we cut them, we strip them and tin them. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take the green lead, this one, and we're going to solder it to the right speaker jack lug, along with a little jumper cable, jumper wire that we prepared that's going to go here. So let's get this done first, then we'll take care of this one. So here is the final view of the solder work that I did. As you can see, I turned these jacks around to match the drawing inside the manual. It's just easier to follow along that way. And so then we took the green wire here and we put it onto the right lug. Then we took the same right lug. We have the jumper cable going to the right lug of the speaker jack extension. And then we have the black lead going to the left lug of the speaker jack extension plug. So everything here now is wired up. Step 37 involves connecting the reverb driver leads, all of these on the left side of your chassis if you're facing the front. And here we have a series of 4 wires. We have the green, we have the black, we have the blue and the red. So we're going to have to take these and we're going to start off with the green wire. And we're going to just shorten this so that it reaches the lug of the reverb input jack. We'll tin it and we'll solder it to the lug. And we've already tinned it a little bit here. And what we're going to do is we're going to have to take this green wire and solder it to the middle lug of the reverb input jack. So the reverb input jack is this one. So I'm probably going to take this off because it's very tricky to try and do that on the inside. It would be a lot easier just to take it out and then put it back in. So that's exactly what I'm going to do and get that done. So there you have the leads now soldered to the correct input jack for the reverb. And so we have the green wire going to the center lug. We have the black going to the ground. I removed it to be able to do this. It's a lot easier. So that's done. So this blue wire is going to go onto socket V2. I labeled all of the sockets just to make it easier so I don't make a mistake. And the blue wire is going to go onto pin 6 of socket V2. So let's get that done. So for step number 38, we're going to need to cut 2 3/4 inch jumper cables, which is basically this jumper wires here. And we're going to have to wrap one of them between pin 2 and 7 of socket V2. And then we have to solder the connection to pin 2. So this is quite touchy work. As you can see, I'm using needle nose pliers and I'm going to have to work very carefully. There is pin 2, there's pin 7. I'm going to do this without filming again because it's going to be very difficult for me to film this very detailed work. But I'm going to get that done and then we'll be back. All right, so here we finally have all of the wires soldered properly to socket V2. It was very challenging, very exacting work, especially with the small jumpers in the center here. And you can see there's not a whole lot of space to do stuff. I actually burnt a little bit of the covering of one of the wires, but it was only a little burn. Nothing didn't go through, so that's still okay. I'm going to leave that there as a reminder to be more careful next time. So we did the crisscross jumpers here as indicated, and we did the jumper going around and then the blue lead coming here. So let me just recap this so you guys understand a little bit better what's going on here, because it's a little bit challenging. Okay, so we took a 3/4 inch white jumper and we wrapped one of them between pin 2 and 7. Then we soldered the connection to pin 2. After that, we wrapped the second short jumper between pin 3 and 8, same V2 socket, and we soldered the connection to pin 3. Then finally, we took the longer jumper here, which is about a 2-inch jumper, and we connected between pins 1 and 6. 1 is here, 6 is there, and we routed it around the socket as indicated. Then we soldered the jumper at pin 1 and also at pin 6. Pin 1 is here, pin 6 is there, along with the blue wire. So this socket should be wired up now. After taking a break to rest my eyes, I decided to continue and just finish up the next couple of steps on page 19. We're almost there. So the next step, which is step 39, we need to add a couple of jumpers, 3 of them to be precise, and they're asking for jumpers of approximately 3 inches. So I have one here, and you need to use the green wire for this. So we're going to wrap one end of this onto pin 8 of socket 5, which is this one here. And we'll solder that one right away, and then we'll trim the excess wire and wrap the other end onto pin 8 of socket 6. So these 2 sockets will then be connected. It's getting increasingly difficult to show you exactly what I'm doing here because the spaces are getting tight, but I'm still trying to videotape while doing this, which is not easy, guys. I'm telling you, it would be a lot easier for me just to build this thing straight out, but I'm trying my best. So here we go. That should be socket number 8 on V5. And then we're going to connect the remaining wire here to socket V6, also pin number 8. Now they don't really indicate in the instructions if you should go through the top pinholes or the bottom pinholes. But I decided to go through the top ones. All right, so we should be okay. I'm just checking to see if I don't want to put too much pressure on the pins. Seems to be all right. We should be okay with that. Well, that's the first burn I got from this particular build. I thought I smelled some burning chicken. Any case, gotta continue. Show must go on. Okay, I think at this point we're done with step 39. So let's recap what we've done so far. So we've cut a 3-inch green jumper, and we've wrapped one end onto pin 8 of socket 5, which is there. And then we soldered that wire down and then trimmed away any excess wire and wrapped the other end of this jumper onto pin 8 of socket number 6, V6, right there. Then we cut a 5-inch green jumper and we soldered one end to pin 8 of V6, which is the bottom hole in the lug. And the other end of this green jumper was soldered. I gotta get that right. Soldered onto the front grounding strip, which we have here. And then the final jumper is a white wire. It's a 4-inch white wire that we used to jumper pin 4 on socket V6. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we jumpered that onto pin 4 of V5, which is there. was a pretty involved step, but I think we got everything right. The only mishap was burning my thumb and getting a little bit of solder drip inside the socket here, which I hope won't affect anything. I'm going to try and get that out eventually, but it's stuck pretty good. But I'll get that out later on. Let's move on to step 40. So let me try and give you a good view and a recap of what we did for step 40. It was a little bit involved. What we did was we cut a 1 1/4 inch long white jumper cable or wire, and we soldered one end to the middle lug of the reverb output jack right there. We left the other end loose. Then we took a 220K resistor and we passed it onto the middle lug of the reverb pedal jack, which is there. And then we wrapped the other end onto the ground tab of the reverb output jack, which is there. The tricky part is that the other end of this small lead, as well as the resistor leg, as well as the other lead that we're going from the middle, we're putting from the middle lug here to V3, and that's pin 2 on V3, all have to go through that little hole there. So that's the tricky part. But if you can manage to squeeze everything into that little hole, then you're home free. The rest is easy. Soldering the pin number 2 here for socket V3 is pretty straightforward. Next, we're going to cut a 2-inch green jumper, and we're going to install it between the filter cap's negative lug, which is there, and the nearby grounding strip, which is here. So we're going to solder both of those connections right now. So generally doing this stuff is not complicated. Take your time, make sure everything is tinned properly, and it'll go a lot smoother if you do it that way. If you need to take a break, I recommend taking a break, because sometimes, you know, you just get too tired, your brain's not working properly, and that's where you make silly mistakes. I've done a couple of those already on my own here, but I'm still trying to get this done relatively quickly. And the trouble when you're going too quick is you also make mistakes. Okay, so let's recap step 41. There's a couple of things we needed to do here. The first thing is we took a 2-inch green wire and created a little jumper. And we attached one end of that jumper to the negative lug of the filter cap. And the other end of that went to the middle lug of the grounding strip. Next, we took the 15K 2-watt resistor and we placed it between lugs O and U of the filter cap. But we just placed it there by bending the legs. We didn't solder anything yet. Next, we're gonna have to take 2 100 ohm resistors, and we're gonna have to twist them together and apply a little bit of solder to them to keep them joined, and wrap the 2 resistors onto the pilot lamp lugs along with a green power transformer lead. And we're not going to solder that either. So there's a lot of preparation, not necessarily a lot of soldering, but let's get that done. So for step number 42, we went ahead and created our 4-inch long jumper cable. We took the 2 100 ohm resistors, twisted them together, soldered them to the end of the 4-inch jumper, and we're ready to put them onto the lugs for the pilot lamp. To make sure you have a good connection, I recommend just creating two little hooks like that so that you're able to hook them onto the little holes while you're soldering everything in place. And also I applied a shrink wrap tube here just to make sure nothing would touch the chassis or create a short circuit. So next we have to hook these onto the pilot lamp posts right here, and then connect the other end to the lug right here. So once again, we're trying to get this done in a pretty tight spot there in the corner. Sometimes it's easy to remove the component, but we're going to try and get it done this way. Let's see how much luck we have. Forgive my hands. If you used the loop method like I suggested, you should be okay. That should be good. So the next step in the process is to take the other end of the jumper and attach it to the grounding strip here. But we're also going to want to connect the red and green wire there as well. So we're soldering both wires at the same time. Sometimes it's easy just to push one through at a time. Then once they're both in, just apply a little solder there to tack everything in place. So we've pretty much completed steps 39 to 42. I'm going to go ahead and put a check mark next to all of these. Pretty proud that we got this far. The manual suggests that we stop and we inspect our work. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to look over all the steps we've already completed. Going to go back, take a look at all the wires, make sure I didn't overlook anything, look to see if there's any cold solder joints or loose wires, but just by gently tugging on a few things there just to make sure everything is attached and we didn't forget any steps. And then we can continue the process. I think we made a lot of great progress here, guys. We didn't have any big mishaps. I have to say page 19 is a little bit tricky, a little bit challenging, but you want to make sure you have all of the wires connected properly. These wires are very important. Some of them carry a lot of voltage, and you want to make sure that when you do plug in your assembled board, your finished amplifier, that you don't have any issues, nothing catches fire or explodes or anything like that. So take the time now to go over everything once again, and you'll save yourself a lot of headaches down the road, guaranteed. If any of you are considering building one of these kits, please don't hesitate. They're a lot of fun. Honestly, they really are. They seem a little challenging, but at the end of the day, once you get into the process, you'll see that it's not that difficult. And I'm really learning a lot from the process. So if you're on the fence, go out and get a kit. You're going to really like it. And at the end of the day, you should actually end up with a really cool amplifier that you will enjoy and be proud of for a long, long time. So if you spot anything that I should know about in this video, please let me know. Of course, you can leave it in the comments below, or even better, join us for the live Sunday shows where we actually participate in a live Sunday chat with a bunch of great guitar and gear addicted people just like you, and get to have a one-on-one conversation. You can always share the information there. Most importantly, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Your subscription goes a long way, and it definitely helps promote what we're doing here on Addicted to Gear. That's it. Stay tuned. More to come.